what I've done is I've used a question that I was sent by one of the members regarding delta, regarding how to read it and how to interpret movements in delta that perhaps are slightly contravening the way the market is actually moving. So this is the chart that we're looking at. I'll go on and I'll give you a bit more context on this afterwards in terms of what was actually going on at that period of time, so you can then start seeing a little bit more. But what we're looking at here is a market that is sideways to down. Essentially, this is a range day in the Bund that ranges between 80s and 56s. So that's a very tight 24 tick range. What we've seen within that is a marginal downtrend, but delta rising throughout the day. So if anything, slightly divergent delta. Delta gets up to plus 8,000. The price in the Bund throughout this day moves, well, really from an open at low 60s to a close in the mid 60s. So ultimately, price doesn't really move throughout the day. Very, very balanced. Now, to give you a little bit more context, this essentially is a consolidation day following a trend day. Yes, it is marginally tilted to the downside, but ultimately it's a consolidation following a trend. Now, what you've got to be asking yourself with this is you've got to be asking yourself a few questions, and this is the way I always approach anything. Try and ask yourself as many questions that are going to give you information about what this means. So the main thing you want to be looking at here is what exactly is this indicating, and then what are the implications of this? So what is it indicating? Well, what it's indicating is that there is a willingness to buy after a rally for a continuation. What the delta is showing you is net buying compared to selling. Net buying at market compared to net selling at market. So effectively it's a view of aggression. So throughout the day, we've got 8,000 more people have lifted the offer than hit the bid. So that's telling you there is still willingness to buy within this market. The second thing I would take is that the downtrend on this, and I will show you it on a larger time frame chart in a moment, the downtrend on this is marginal within the overall trend. It is a small downtrend, and within the day on a relatively short time frame chart, you do get this slight downward sloping trend, contrary to the upward sloping delta. What the increase in delta is showing you is that buyers are getting themselves positioned long at the extreme of a move. So at this point, we were at the high of the recent move. Buyers are then getting themselves positioned long, looking for the market to start going. What's the implication of this? Well, the main implication is that buyers need continuation. If you're buying it at the top of a move, what are you looking for? You're looking for a continuation. You're not going to be on side, you're not going to be getting paid until you get a move higher. So that's what the buyers need. They need to get some type of continuation. And the delta increasing here, whilst in a reasonably stable market, is showing you that they're taking positions on here. They're willing to keep on buying. So this is where we were, and this is what happened. So this is the day that we've got in the shorter time frame example just above. And like I say, essentially you can draw the trend on this. There you've got this marginal downtrend. You could argue that this is a little bit of a flag setting up for a continuation higher, and that does go some way to explaining why people would be willing to buy it up here looking for a continuation. So like I say, if you are a buyer getting yourself long on this day, you need to see continuation. That's how you're going to get paid. What you then get the next day, and so what we're trying to build here is a little bit of a picture, a little bit of a story of what's going on. The delta's telling you that there's buying. Delta rose on this day as well. So you've had buying to get the move higher, buying for the continuation. The following day, however, you don't get that continuation. It begins with continuation, starts to the upside, drops back in, and essentially is a bit of a range day. So you're now starting to get a picture that there's a lot of people long up here that are not getting paid. The implication of this is then if we do start to break down below these recent lows, we've then got the potential for a drop. And this is where delta, when looking at context, can start helping you out a little bit more. So it's all about how delta's sitting within the context of what's going on. Yeah, are the people buying it up here getting themselves long at the extreme in a vulnerable position? Whereas if you started to see delta increasing down here, this would be giving you a clue that having moved up the range but not at the top, then you're getting people willing to buy aggressively towards the lower part of the range. This is seen as an initiation. This is then starting to kick a move off, which can then lead into this type of move. Whereas in this situation, what you do have to think about is absolutely, if delta is rising, there are buyers there. Your view should still be to the upside. But if the market doesn't continue with that, you then fall back to this situation, that the buyers need a continuation. And if they're not getting it, they're then going to start coming out of this. And that's how you then get this drop back and then the reversal as those buyers slowly get themselves stopped out as the market starts to drop. I'll give you a little bit more detailed example of this, and this is one taken in the Euro stocks, and it's one that builds up over a little bit of time. It effectively is delta, or I've basically got a bigger picture, so showing you the context of what's going on, how delta is shifting to help a move out, but then also how you then get an unwind of delta, whereby you get the delta increasing at a point that becomes dangerous for the longs to still be in a trade. So first up, as a clue to the breakout, and particularly just here, you start getting delta reverses on this first day. So this little move here, you get a drop, market moves back up, delta has dropped and then starts to rise once more. Next up, we still have another reasonably tight day, and in fact this is an inside day, but on this inside day, delta rises all day long. So a bit like the previous example in the Bund, you're getting buyers in the middle of this day. You're getting people suggesting that they still want to be long here, even though the move isn't progressing. Then you start getting the break. Market moves higher, delta keeps going higher, and again and again. And so for these 2 days here, delta keeps on going. People are still in this situation willing to buy as the market rises. So that's giving you a sign of strength. That's showing you that at this point in time, even with gaps higher, people are still willing to come in and buy. We move on, and so the next chart is then the continuation of what happens here. So after this point, and this is then what we get. So these were the 2 days where delta moved higher, so as we came out of the range. So let me just check the date. Yep, so the 3rd. There's your gap up, delta rises, gap up, delta rises, and then we once again get another move higher, delta rising, and then you get 2 days where the market doesn't go anywhere on these two in the box, but delta starts to fall. And what then happens is this is now starting to give you a clue that the market could well start to drop, because of the fact that the willingness to buy is over. So what the delta is showing you here is that after having consistent, aggressive buying. We were seeing plus 30,000, I've got the line just there, 30,000 on 3 days in a row of increasing delta. We then, on the third, got a total of 55,000 or even 60,000 of delta. This then starts to fall. This is now a clue that people are starting to come out of these positions and unwind those positions. So that's then showing that there is less willingness to go higher. And so anyone who's still in is then going to be sitting, waiting to see if this move progresses, waiting to see if we get new buying coming in. So from that point of view, you're now in a position where you actually have a risk of this unwinding and falling. And so that then gives you a little bit of a sense of context in terms of where a market has gone, how the delta from one point starts to give you an indication of a break to the upside and then confirms it. And then as the delta starts to fall, it becomes a clue that we could well be looking for a drop. And the next day you get that market holds in the range and then we drop all the way out the range. You're then looking for a continuation. If this breaks through this gap, then you've got a lot of long positioning that is there to come out. And so that's how you then get the delta reversal. So over a period of time, over a larger context, that's how you can start to use delta. So it's tracking it over multiple days rather than just within the day.